Hi guys, welcome back to my miniature things. My name is Saeed. On today's Dolls Day Out, our dolls are going to the salon. And not just any salon, it's gonna be a high-end luxury salon. But before we get into the salon, I do wanna give a huge thank you to all of you guys out there who supported the My Miniature Things runway launch last weekend. You guys sold out everything within hours. Like, I was beyond shocked, but also ecstatic at the same time. So again, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much. We will talk more about the launch and future launches at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. But for right now, let's focus on the salon, okay? One thing at a time. So many of you guys have been requesting this for the longest time, so without further ado, let's start building a high-end luxury salon for our dolls. So as usual, let's start with our floors, and today's build is gonna be huge because we have to fit a lot of stuff in here. So I joined 3 foam boards together, and now I'm gonna go cover it in this black contact paper that I found on Amazon, giving me a massive black wooden floor that measures 60 inches by 30 inches. And even though this space is so wide, I am still a little bit scared that this might not be enough space, believe it or not. But let me just give you a quick little rundown of what I was thinking for the space. Over there on the left, I was thinking to do all the stylist stations, like where you get your hair cut and colored. Over there on the back wall, I was thinking to do like a color bar, like where the dolls can mix their colors and stuff like that. And then on the sides, I was thinking about doing like the sinks where they can actually wash the colors out. And then over here on the right, I was thinking to do some dryer stations where the dolls can actually dry their hair after they've washed it. And then if we have time, we can make like a little waiting area for dolls who are like early to their appointment, or maybe for dolls who failed to make an appointment. But now that we have our floor, let's start building our walls. For our left wall, I was thinking about using this contact paper that I found at my local dollar store. It was $1.99, not $1. So I slapped it onto a piece of foam board, and I think it looks amazing. It's very high-end hair salon vibes. Now, as I said, our back wall is 60 inches wide, so it's really wide. I don't want to do like the same wall going all the way across, so let's kind of break it up a bit. I was thinking to use 2 different contact papers, this gray one that I found on Amazon and this gray marble one that I found at my local Dollar Tree, and $1.25 is definitely better than $1.99, but it's still not $1. And this is what I came up with. I know it looks a little bit busy right now because of all of the textures, but I promise you at the end, it's going to look amazing. For our right wall, I decided to go with another one of these walls. So now that we have our floor and our walls covered, let's start making our stylist stations, which will go over there on that wall. Let's start by cutting a black piece of foam board down to 1.5 inches by 2 inches. And I cut some 1/4-inch strips of gold craft paper to clean up the sides. I then add some more gold 1/4-inch strips to the top, and I do it all the way around on all 4 sides until my piece looks like this. Repeat to make 2 more. Cut another piece of foam board that measures 6.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Place a 3/4-inch strip of gold craft paper down to the bottom, and then add your 1.5 by 2 inch pieces right above it, going all the way up. I left about a 1/4 inch of space in between each one, and these are going to be our faux drawers, so let's see if we can figure out some drawer handles for these. I was thinking about using these tacks that I found at my local Dollar Tree. All I have to do is find the dead middle of the drawer and stick it in. And I think that looks pretty good. Now let's cut 2 more pieces of black foam board that measure 3 inches by 6.5 inches. Trim the 6.5 inch side in 1/4-inch strips of gold craft paper. Let's now take our piece with the drawers and attach it to the side of one of our pieces that measures 3 by 6.5 inches, about a 1/4 inch away from the edge. Add our second 3 by 6.5 inch piece that we trimmed on the side with gold craft paper to the other side, about a 1/4 inch away from the edge, just like we did for this side. I then repeated to make 3 more, giving me a total of 4. Then I cut another piece of my black foam board that measures 6.5 inches wide, but it measures 25.5 inches long. I then place one of the pieces that I made earlier on one end, a second one on the other end, and then the remaining 2 right in the middle, leaving about a 4.5 inch gap in between each one. For the top, let's cut a piece that measures 3.5 inches by 27 inches, trim the edges in gold craft paper just like we did for the drawers, and place it on the top. And now we have 3 different slots for 3 different stylists. Even though we did make some drawers where adults can store their hairstyling tools, I feel like they need a little bit more storage space. I was thinking, what if we put some shelves above the drawers so the adults have a more accessible place to store their tools that they use on a more frequent basis? Because that would get really annoying if every single time you need to use like a hairdryer or a comb, you have to open and close those drawers, especially since they don't actually work. So let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 2 inches by 10 inches, and I draw 3 lines every 2.5 inches going all the way up. I then cut a second piece that measures 1 3/4 inches by 10 inches, and I clean up the side in my gold craft paper, and I place it on the side of the 2 by 10 inch piece like this. For the actual shells, I cut 3 pieces that measure 1 1/4 by 2 inches, and I trimmed all of my sides of my gold craft paper, and I start placing them on those lines that I drew earlier. And then I cut 1 more piece that measures 1 3/4 by 10 inches, clean up the side of my gold craft paper, and place it on the other side. I repeated to make 3 more, and now we can start placing them above our drawers to give our stylist some extra storage space. And to finish it off, I'm gonna add this piece that measures 2 inches by 27 inches and trimmed in gold craft paper to the top. Now we definitely need to get some mirrors up in here. So I cut 3 pieces of acrylic mirror that each measure 4 inches by 8 inches. And we can just start placing them in between our shelves. And you guys, I can't express to you how much I love this. This came out 10 million times better than I ever expected. But no styling station is complete without styling chairs, so let's make some styling chairs. Let's start with the base of our chair. I'm gonna use one of these wooden dowels that I found at my local dollar store. Cut it down to 4 inches and wrap it in gold craft paper. Then I take the circular piece of craft wood that I also found at my local dollar store, and I cover the top and the sides of it in my gold craft paper. Let's now place our 4-inch covered wooden dowel right in the middle to create the base of our chair. Now let's work on the top part of our chair, like the part where you actually sit. Let's start by cutting 3 pieces of foam board down to 3 inches by 3 inches and sticking all of them together. Cut a piece of batting that measures 4.5 by 4.5 inches and place our 3 by 3 inch piece of foam board in the middle. This piece is going to be the seat cushion to our chair, and I was thinking that this brown leather might be a really nice touch to the vibe that we have going so far. So I cut a piece that measures 5 by 5.5 inches, flip it over, and then place our piece with the foam board on the batting in the middle. Start rolling the batting and the fabric over the sides of our foam board onto the back. I finish one side and then I go to the opposite side and start rolling that piece onto the back of my foam board. And then I finish up the other 2 sides. So you should end up with something that looks like this. And now we're going to take a little bit of hot glue and fill these little pockets on the side and then fold them over so that they lay nice and flat, so that when you flip it over, it looks like this. I repeated on all 4 of my corners to give us our finished seat cushion. For the backrest, I cut 2 pieces that measure 1.5 inches by 3 inches. I am now going to cover one of them the same way that we did for the seat cushion with the batting and the fabric. So it should end up looking something like this. It's basically just a smaller seat cushion. I am also going to cover my other 1.5 by 3 inch piece in my brown pleather, but this time I'm going to skip the batting like this. And now we're going to take the piece with the batting and put the 2 ugly sides facing together so that we have the 2 finished sides facing outward. Now let's attach our seat cushion to our backrest. I'm going to use this silver welding rod. I know I wish it was gold, but I don't have a gold welding rod, and I tried spray painting it, and you guys, the spray paint just wouldn't stick. So we're going to start by placing the seat cushion about 4 inches away from the edge, and then I'm going to bend this part right here upward. Then I'm going to move over to this side and bend this part of my welding rod downward right at the edge of our seat. Let's now remove our seat cushion and measure about 3.5 inches down from this bend. And instead of following the flow that we've been going with so far, we're going to bend the welding rod this way. Then move over about 2 inches to about right here and bend upwards. I'm now going to repeat this same pattern over here on this side. So you should end up with a piece that looks like this. And now I'm going to take my seat cushion and hot glue it to this part. To attach my backrest, I'm going to use my awl and make a tiny little hole going right through the middle of these 2 pieces of foam board. Another one on the other side. And now let's insert these 2 raw ends into those 2 little holes that we just poked. Add a piece of 1 by 1.5 inch piece of foam board that's covered all the way around in my gold craft paper to the bottom, so the dolls have a place to put their feet when they're getting their haircut. Add the chair that we just made to the base that we made earlier, right on top in the middle. And it's looking pretty good so far, you guys, if I do say so myself, but now we need some handles. So again, let's use our welding rod, measure about 2 inches in and bend it at a 90-degree angle. I then measure up about 1.5 inches and I bend it at another 90-degree angle going the opposite direction. Measure over 2 inches and bend it going 90 degrees downwards. And then lastly, we're going to repeat this on this side. So it should end up looking something like this. And again, I am going to use my awl to poke a little hole right through the side of my chair. One here and one right about here, probably about 2 inches apart. Let's now insert this piece that we just made right into those holes. Cut a 1/2 inch strip of foam board down to about 2.5 inches and cover the sides all the way around in gold craft paper and place it right on the top of our little armrest. And now we have the cutest little styling chair that adults can sit in while they're getting their hair done. I repeated to make 2 more, and now we have 3 stylish chairs so the adults can sit in while they're getting their hair done. And I think with that, our stylist wall is complete and I love it. I am obsessed. But now I want to do a little door back there on that gray wall to signify like a break room or like a storage room or something. So let's start making that now. As you can see right here, I already made my markings of where I want my door to be. It measures 2 inches away from the edge, 14.5 inches tall and 5 inches wide. I then cut it out, cut 2 3/4 inch strips of black foam board and place them on either side. And another strip that measures 3/4 inches by 6 inches and I place it on the top to create a frame. Cut 1/2 inch strips of black craft paper and use it to clean up my edges. For the door, I have a dilemma. We have 2 different contact papers that we can go with. We have this one, or we can go with this one. I didn't have enough of this contact paper to reach all the way down to the bottom of my piece, so I added like a gold kick plate down at the bottom. I think it works. And by the way, this piece does measure about 6 inches by 15 inches. It doesn't really matter how big it is, just as long as it is bigger than your opening. I think I'm gonna go with this one, you guys. For the door handle, I cut a 1/4 inch strip of foam board down to 3 1/4 inches, and I cover it all the way around in my gold craft paper, and I place it over here on the side. And then, as I said, this door is supposed to be for like a craft room. This room is supposed to be like a break room or like a storeroom, which means like employees only. So I used ChatGPT to make this sign. I cut it out and stick it onto a gold piece of craft paper that's a little bit bigger so it creates a border. Covered it in some clear tape so it becomes glossy, and then I place it on the front of the door to give us our employees only door. Now let's keep shredding along, because as I said, over here I want to do like a color bar and like the hair wash and sink. So let's start first with the color bar. So let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 10 inches by 17 inches. Cover the top 10 inches in this wood grain contact paper, and I left the bottom bare because I'm going to add this piece that measures 6 1/2 inches by 10 inches right over it. This piece is going to be the back of our color bar, and I cut this piece for the side. It measures 17 inches tall. The bottom here is 3 inches wide. This part over here measures 2 inches wide. This side measures 6 1/2 inches, and this side measures 10 1/2 inches. And this little piece right here is just 1 inch. And now we can place it right here on the side of our back. Cut another piece that measures 3 inches by 10 inches and cover it in gold craft paper, including the side. And I'm just gonna add this right on top of that 6 1/2 inch piece that we put down in the beginning. Add a black piece of foam board that measures 6 1/2 inches by 10 inches right under that gold piece that we just put in. Cut 3 black pieces of foam board down to 2 3/4 inches by 5 inches and finish the edges just like we did for our faux drawers so that we could make faux doors. Add our little decorative tacks for handles and a gold 3/4 inch strip down at the bottom just like we did for the styling stations. Cut 3 1 3/4 by 10 inch strips of black foam board and trim the edges in gold craft paper and start placing them going up your piece every 2 1/2 inches. Cut a second side piece with the same measurements as we did for this side and add it over on this side. For the top, let's add a piece that measures 2 inches by 11 1/2 inches. And I'm going to use these gold letters that I found at my local Dollar Tree to make a little sign that says color bar for our color bar, you guys. I'm obsessed. I'm just going to attach it up there with some poster putty just in case I need to use this shelf in the future for something other than a hair salon. But I think it looks amazing, and now the dolls have a place to mix their color when they're doing their customers' hair. But now that we have our color bar down, let's see if we can start working on our hair washing sinks. So let's start by placing a doll onto a piece of foam board, kind of like in this position, like she was getting her hair washed, and then use a pen or a pencil to make an outline on the underside of her body. So you should end up with something that looks like this. I'm now going to draw a line connecting this side of the line to the bottom of our foam board, and the same thing on this side. To make it easier on myself, I'm just going to draw these lines a little bit more straight. I then cut it out and use it as a template to cut 2 pieces from black foam board. This is going to be the sides of our hair washing chair, but we are going to set this aside for a minute so that we can work on the sink portion of it. Cut a piece of foam board that measures 1 1/2 inches by 4 inches, and I'm just going to measure about 1 1/2 inches from this corner and make a little line, and the same thing on the other side. Let's now connect both of those lines using our pencil by drawing a curve. This is where the doll's neck is going to rest when she's getting her hair washed. I then cut it out and I covered my piece in gold craft paper, and I also covered the side where we cut the curve. Let's now add another piece of foam board that measures 2 inches by 1 1/2 inches and covered in my gold craft paper to the back on the side. Add another 2 inch by 1 1/2 inch piece that's covered in gold craft paper to the other side, and one more 2 by 4 inch piece, again covered in gold craft paper, to the back. For the bottom of our sink, we're going to use a piece that measures 2 inches by 4 inches and place this piece on the top. Add a gold thumbtack to the bottom of our sink in the middle to signify the sinkhole. Let's now go back to this piece that we made earlier and place our sink that we just made right up against this corner, making sure that it's flush with the top. Oh, I just realized that I didn't give you guys the measurements of this piece. This side over here measures 4 3/4 inches. The top measures 3 3/4 inches. This side right here, which is going to be the backrest, is 3 1/2 inches. This is where the seat's going to be. This is 3 1/4 inches. And then the bottom down here is about 9 3/4 inches. Oh, and then this part right here is about 2.5 inches. So now that that's out of the way, let's cut a piece that measures 1.25 inches by 4.5 inches and place it in the back like this. So now that we have our sink portion going, let's make our chair portion. I'm going to use this piece for the back piece. It measures 3.5 inches by 4 inches. The 3.5 inches goes this way, and I place it right under the sink like this, about 1/4 inch away from this edge. For the seat part, I'm going to use a piece that measures 3.25 by 4 inches, and I'm just going to place it right under the backrest, again about 1/4 inch away from the edge. Add a 2 by 4 inch piece right under our seat in the front. I'm going to place this 4 by 9.25 piece down here at the bottom. You don't have to do this. I'm just placing this here for a little bit extra stability. But now we can add in that other side piece that we made earlier. Making sure that your top edges are flush and your seat is 1/4 inch away from the edge so it matches this side. To finish up our sink, I'm going to take my awl and poke a hole in the middle up here and use a gold grommet to clean up the edges. Now the reason why I made a hole where the faucet's supposed to go is because at a hair salon they usually have a hose to wash hair with. So I'm going to use this black piece of string as my hose, and I'm just going to stick that right through. Actually, before we stick it in there, I'm going to use 2 black little pieces of foam board to sandwich the end of my cord in the middle like this, so that when I pass my cord, well, my hose through the opening and the dolls pull on it, it doesn't come out. For the other end of the hose where the faucet actually goes, I'm going to use this 3/4 inch strip of gold craft paper and just start wrapping it around the end of my cord. I mean, my hose. And I just keep wrapping and wrapping until it's large enough that it won't fall back through our opening. Trim off the excess and wrap it in a clear piece of tape so it doesn't come apart. For the nozzle, I'm going to use this gold bead and this little white button to cover the opening. Flip it over and fill the other side with hot glue. Place it on the end of our cord and clean up the back of it with a little bit of gold paint. For the faucet handles, I'm going to use these paper fasteners. I'm not really sure where I got these, but they were only $179 for like $1 million. They have like these pointy edges so that we can just stick them right through the foam board. Now let's decorate it. I'm going to add this 3/4 inch strip of gold craft paper around the bottom. You guys, I completely forgot the back. Let's add a piece that measures 4.25 by 4 inches to the back. Finish cleaning up the edges with gold craft paper. And you guys, I really thought that this had reached like the epitome of what this could be until I made little cushions just like we did for the Stylist chairs. And you guys, isn't this like the cutest 1/6 scale hair washing chair you've ever seen in your entire life? I'm obsessed with this part. The fact that it retracts, obsessed. Let's just place it right over here on the side of the color bar and then make a second one to place on the other side. And you guys, that is outrageous. Outrageous. So good. Oh my God, I love it. I used ChatGPT to make these hair posters. I then stuck them to a piece of foam board and trimmed them in gold craft paper. And I was thinking they would look really cute over our hair washing chairs. But then I was thinking, what if we cut 1-inch strips of foam board, covered it in gold craft paper, and added it to the back wall right where these foam boards meet to cover up the seam and add some more definition. And place the posters on either side of the room. Yeah, I think I like that a lot better. Well, I better, because that almost killed me. For this wall over here, I would like to add a window since we don't really have any windows going on so far, so let's do that now. I went ahead and made my window cutout on the right side of my wall. It measures 8.5 by 9.25, 7 inches up from the bottom and 1.5 inches from the side. I then cut 3/4 inch strips of foam board to make a frame just like we did for the door. Clean up the edges with black craft paper and add a piece of plexiglass or clear packaging to the back. And now the dolls have a huge window that they can use to see outside. Well, that's not outside, that's studio light, but later on in the video, there will be an outside, I promise. But now that we have our window down, I did say over here in this corner, I wanted to do like the hair drying station. So let's see if we can start building those now. Let's start again by placing our doll onto a piece of foam board, but this time she's going to be sitting more upright. And notice her back is about 3 inches away from the edge over here and her feet are hanging off the bottom. Now, just like the hair washing chairs, I'm just going to trace around her. Actually, I'm going to use a pen because the pencil isn't really showing up on camera. Set the doll aside. And then just like the hair washing chairs, we're going to join the top of the back to the edge of the foam board. Make this line a little bit straighter and then join the edge of the seat to the bottom of the foam board. I then cut it out and use it as a template to cut 2 pieces from black foam board. The bottom measures 7.25 inches. The front of it measures 3 inches. The seat measures 3.75 inches. The back measures 3.5 inches. The top of it is 2.75 inches and the back of it measures 6.5 inches. Let's now cut another piece that measures 3.75 inches by 3 inches and place it up here to create our backrest. For the seat, I'm going to use another piece that measures 3.75 inches by 3 inches. The front of it measures 3 inches by 2.25 inches and I place it right under the seat. I am going going to add a bottom to this just to add that extra stability. But again, you totally don't have to do this. This piece measures 6 3/4 inches by 3 inches, and I place it right down here in the corner. Add a piece that measures 3 inches by 2.5 inches to the top, a 3 by 6 1/4 inch piece to the back, and our second side piece to close it off. Trim all of our edges in gold craft paper. I also made some more of our seat cushions so our adults could be comfortable while they're getting their hair dry. For the armrest, I'm going to use our welding rod again. We are going to bend it at a 90-degree angle, move over about 2 inches and bend it again. Trim off the excess. Poke 2 little holes on the sides of your seat about 1 inch away from the front and 1 inch away from the back so that we can use it to insert our armrest, and add our 1/2 inch by 2.5 inch strip of black foam board that's covered on the side with gold craft paper to the top, just like we did for the Stylist chairs. So now that the chair portion of our hair drying station is done, let's make the actual hair dryer. I was thinking to use one of these mini brands bulbs to make the dome part of it, like where the doll actually puts her head into it to like dry her hair. You can see when we pull it apart, both sides are not the same. This side has a beveled edge. We're going to use this side. So I spray painted black the outside and the inside, and I'm going to use this gold piece of craft paper to cover up those grooves. And that looks perfect to me, you guys. All we need now is something to hold it to the chair. I start off with 2 1/2 inch strips of foam board that measure about 4 inches long, and I stick them together. Cover the front of it in gold craft paper, and then I cut the top of it in a 45-degree angle, so this side measures 3 1/4 inches and the back measures 3 1/2 inches. I also made a second one, but this one's a little bit smaller. This side over here measures 1 1/2, and this side over here measures 1 3/4. We're going to stick these together, and notice my angles. This one goes this way and this one goes this way. If you stick it like this, you're going to have big problems. Because we are going to attach the dryer part to the end of this piece. But I just feel like this is a little bit of a heavy piece because down here is the only part that's going to have contact with the chair. So let's stick one of our welding rods right through the middle until it comes out the top, and then stick it into our smaller piece. Cover all of my rough edges in gold craft paper, and then I attach my hair dryer. And notice I did leave part of the rod coming out the bottom of my piece, and that's because I do want to stick that into the chair so that we get a nice sturdy piece. I kind of want to add this little bead like right up here to make it look like there's a screw. I ended up adding a few more, and you guys, I am obsessed. I definitely think that this piece is my favorite thing that we've made in this video so far. And as I said, our drying stations are going to be over here on the side. I then repeated all the steps to make another one, and now the dolls can dry multiple customers' hair at once. And to be honest, you guys, I've never actually sat under one of these, so I don't really know how long people actually usually sit under there, but I feel like it's a long time, so the dolls might get bored. So let's see if we can make a quick little table for the middle of both of these that we can add some magazines to, so the dolls can entertain themselves while they're getting their hair dried. So let's start with a piece of foam board that measures 3 inches by 5 inches, and another piece that measures 2.5 inches by 3 inches, and I join them on the side of the 5-inch piece that measures 3 inches. I repeat the same thing with another 2.5 by 3 inch piece on the other side and a 5 by 3 inch piece in the back. And for the top, let's add a 5 by 3 inch piece that's covered in gold craft paper. I then trimmed it and added some decorative tack so it matches the rest of the salon. And now we can place it right in the middle of both of our hair drying stations. Now remember in the beginning of the video how I was saying that we could make like a little waiting area over here if we had some time? Well, guess what? We have time. I use all of the same steps that we just used to make that table. To make a larger one, it measures 8.5 inches wide by 4 inches tall and 3 inches deep. I then made another one of our little cushions that we can place on the top to give us a little bench that we can place in our waiting area. I also have this little clear acrylic riser that I found on Temu that I want to add in front of the bench that we can also add some magazines to so the dolls have something to do while they're waiting. Because as I said, these dolls get bored very easily. And I think we are almost done, you guys. It looks amazing. I think the only thing that's really missing right now is a front desk area. So let's see if we could make a little front desk area right here. I start by cutting a piece down to 6.5 inches by 14 inches and a second piece that measures 6.5 inches by 3 inches. And I join them on the side of the 14-inch piece that measures 6.5 inches. Repeat the same thing for the other side and trim my edges with gold craft paper. I'm also going to add some to the side, making sure that all of my edges are cleaned up. Next, I cut a piece that measures 15.5 by 3.5 and I covered it in gold craft paper all the way around and I place it on the top. And to finish it off, I made another sign with my gold letters saying MMT Hair Salon and I place it right in the front so the dolls know where they're at. And with that, you guys, I think we have our finished hair salon, but I do have a lot of decorating to do, so I'm gonna go do that right now and I'll be right back with the finished product. I added some products to the shelves and this is what I got. All right, you guys, we did it, and I give it 100 out of 10. I thought it looked so cute when I was done building it, but you guys, when I was done staging it, putting all the little products and the dolls and stuff in there, I was blown away. Seriously obsessed. My favorite thing, as I said before, was the hair drying chair. I really thought that the mini brand's cap, like from the ball, was gonna be a little bit too big, but it actually ended up being perfect. Also, the hair washing stations and the stylist stations, you guys, everything was just pure perfection. But you guys already know the drill. I want you guys to leave your comments down below and let me know what was your favorite thing that we built today. And without further ado, let's start talking about the launch. I really can't explain to you guys like how grateful I am for your support. Going into this, we had never done anything like this before, so we had no idea what to expect. Like we were obviously very nervous because we were spending so much time and so much money on this, and then what if we put it out there and it flopped? But then we put it out there and the complete opposite happened, and you guys, I couldn't have asked for anything more. I hope everyone who got their hands on one of the fashion packs is very happy with it. And if you are, I encourage you to go to our My Miniature Things store on Etsy and leave us some reviews, because as I said, we're just starting, so we definitely need some help in that department. Now with that being said, in a perfect world, everyone would love everything that we put out 100%, everybody would be happy, and everything would go smoothly with no hiccups. But I live in reality, so I know that that's not the way the world works. Now so far, we haven't gotten any real like negative feedback, but I do want to also invite those people to leave their feedback, not as reviews, but like you guys can message us and let us know like what we can improve on, because as I said, we're just starting this up. We've never done this before, so we had no idea what we were doing. We also had no one to go to for advice. We basically only had each other. So if you did buy one of our fashion packs, or maybe if you didn't buy a fashion pack and you saw the video and you have some feedback or some criticism on how it would help us grow in the future, you guys can head over to our Etsy account, My Miniature Things. I will put it right here. I'll also link it down in the description, and leave us a very well like detailed, well as detailed as you can, message as to how we can improve for our future lines of fashion packs, so we don't keep making the same mistakes over and over, so we can get better and better. And yes, you guys did hear that correctly. We are going to be doing future lines of fashion packs, and they might be coming sooner than later. That's pretty much all I'm allowed to say for right now, so yeah, I'm gonna just leave it right there. As for the line of fashion packs that we dropped last weekend, so many of you guys were asking, when are we gonna restock? You guys, I don't think that we're gonna restock that. As I said, we are having future lines, so right now we're so busy working on the next line that I don't think we have time to revisit the line from last weekend and make more. Maybe sometime in the far future, like if we get help, we can definitely do that. But as of right now, we're not going to restock, and I'm so sorry. If we knew that it was gonna fly off the shelves as fast as it did, obviously we would have done more. But as I said, we've never done this before, so we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. So in conclusion, thank you guys again so much for your support. We appreciate it so much more than you'll ever know. If you did like your fashion pack and you have no complaints, please go leave us a nice positive review on Etsy. And if you have any criticism or feedback, please leave us a private message, not a review, on Etsy, and we will definitely see how we can improve in the future. And if you guys did like this video, please give it a huge thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.